Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, January 13th, 29th of Teves. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh Shavat. Tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh Shavat. I hope everyone will have a Chodesh Tov, and I hope everyone is doing well as we go through the week, and it seems to be a bit of a gloomy day outside. By the way, we're taking polls now. Maybe it's a little bit of a fun feedback, but people are asking, what do they think of this about the beard? People are saying I should keep it. People are saying, please get rid of it as soon as the Shloshim comes on January 25th. I'm open to all suggestions, but ultimately I will do whatever my wife tells me to do. Speaking about happy wives, I want to wish a happy anniversary to our youth directors, Miriam and Jacob, celebrating their anniversary today. Happy anniversary. And today's video is sponsored by Shelly and Chick Parodies. Today is the yahrzeit, the 15th yahrzeit, of Arie Halpern, Arie Leib ben Mordechai Dov, Zichron Levracha, who passed away in 2006. And I'd like to dedicate today's Dvar Torah in his memory. This is one of the individuals that we stand on the shoulders of giants in our community. And while I had the privilege to meet some of those giants, others I never had the opportunity to meet and to know. And Arie Halpern certainly is one of the individuals I wish I could have known. And I've only heard things secondhand. And as a matter of fact, we celebrated a bar mitzvah this week for Simon Wertenschlag, who is named. His name is Arie Baruch, again, named for Arie Halpern. So tremendous chus to see the name being carried on, but to see his holy work being carried on for generations and generations, so his neshama should have an aliyah. I have heard only about him. I've read about him. I've seen the testimony on the U.S. Holocaust Museum website. And what was legendary, certainly about Arie Halpern, from what I know, is the relationship that he had with his family, and particularly with his brother, Sam Halpern, Zichron Levracha. And of course, as we know, all the families very much interconnected here. As we go through our Parshas Va'era, it's the beginning of the story of the 10 plagues. And Hashem tells Moshe time and after time after time, go to Paro, and this is what's going to happen, and you're going to bring this plague of blood, and then frogs, lice, etc., etc., etc. And each time, Paro seems to relent, and then Paro changes his mind. He hardens his heart. Now we know the whole story that Hashem said he was going to make Paro refuse. He was going to harden his heart. And one could ask, why is it that God brought several plagues? Why not bring one big plague? I mean, ultimately, it was the Makas Bechoros. It was the plague of the killing of the firstborn, which we'll read in next week's Parsha, which did them in. But why this whole progress, this whole procession of 10 plagues? Why not just take them out in one fell swoop? So we could say that maybe there's something about process. There's something about appreciating the the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you have to ask, are the plagues, was it for the Egyptians, for the Jewish people? Did the Jewish people really know what was happening during the time of the plagues? These are all good questions, which one can discuss when studying the Parsha. But one of the things that I want to focus on, and especially since we find ourselves now in a period of a plague, I mean, there's no question about it that we are in a period of a plague, a 100 years pandemic we haven't seen since. And we are, just think about it, it's Shavat is tomorrow, and that means it's only a month away from Adar, which is Purim. And it was already last Purim when we started to get nervous, when we already heard of shuls closing, and we heard of people getting infected. I remember it was exactly a year ago. I was going or coming from Israel, and I saw the TSA agents already with masks, and I'm thinking to myself, like, come on, is this going to be a thing? Like, is this really going to happen? And well, here we are. So it's going to be almost a year of a plague. In Mitzrayim, it was a year of plagues. They say that each plague was a month process, so to say, and it lasted a very, very long time. So if we find ourselves in a plague, I mean, what should our attitude be? And we've discussed this before in this forum, and I think that there is no one better to inspire us and to teach us and to give us guidance than the survivor population. Those who survived the worst plagues that we've known, to our people, not to humanity, to our people as part of humanity, and the way they were able to come out of the ashes and to rise up and not just to survive, but to build families and build empires and build Jewish institutions and build shuls and build yeshivas and build Jewish families. And the response to that is just a tremendous amount of faith that they had. And one could say that maybe Moshe, in this week's parsha, at any point does he lose faith? I mean, we know that he sometimes loses his patience with God and said, God, why are you doing this? But after all, maybe Moshe should have said, why plague after plague after plague? God, like, just do it already. Like, what's going on here? Because Moshe, as a leader himself, had to have a tremendous amount of faith. And one thing that struck me when reading the parsha is, especially in this parsha, is that there's a notable mention of the relationship between Moshe and Aaron. God told him, listen, Moshe, you don't want to go. I'm going to send Aaron. Aaron will do the speaking. And Aaron and Moshe are the ones that are always approaching. And then it goes through all the family lineage. And at the end of a certain paragraph here, right before the fourth Aliyah, the Torah just tells us, Vayas Moshe ve'Aaron kasher tziva Hashem osam ken asu. Moshe and Aaron did exactly as God had commanded them. And it also adds, by the way, Moshe ben Shmonim shana v'Aaron ben Shalosh shmonim shana b'dabrem b'paro. It lists their ages. They were 3 years apart. Aaron was 3 years older than Moshe. When I think of this dynamic duo, when I think of this tandem, when I think of this pair, and they actually probably had to rely a great deal on one another to get themselves through. When I saw this, I was reminded of Arie and Sam Halpern, Zichronim Levracha, because the stories that I've heard in the office, in business, in their families is absolutely legendary. How they were partners in every aspect of life, even sharing a checkbook in all of their charitable endeavors, but in all their family endeavors, it was really one family. And I imagine that they probably relied heavily on one another to get themselves through with a tremendous amount of emunah, bitachon, and faith. We find ourselves in a difficult period. And it's important, therefore, that we have to find others who share our level of faith, who share our commitment and bitachon to help us get through, because sometimes you just cannot do it alone. It's very hard to be a person of faith alone. Rabbi Soloveitchik wrote a book called The Lonely Man of Faith. Maybe that's because there are very few people who are true believers. But when we need to cope and we need to get through a certain difficult situation in life, it's always best when you have support. I mean, I can tell you this now very personally, that having gone through the period of Shiva and now in the period of Shloshim, that the support from family and from friends and community is just something that's immeasurable, and it's something that we all need. It's something that helps us get through each and every day. And when we look at giants, great people who went through the worst, I mean, what we've gone through is not the worst of anything, but people who've gone through the worst of what humanity can see and survive and build and thrive. I know that my colleague, my friend, Rabbi Marcus in Springfield, one of the things that he treasures was his ability to learn with Arie Halpern. For a long time, they learned together. They studied b'chavrusa, and Arie was I think, if I recall correctly, he had actually wanted to study to become a Talmudic scholar, a rabbi of sorts, and he had a tremendous affinity for Torah learning, and that's something, a value which we can all emulate. And as we try to navigate this questionable period in our lives, which is fraught with uncertainty, we have to think of those who had no idea what tomorrow was going to bring, didn't have a dime in their pockets for the next day, and yet somehow they managed with pure faith and faith alone to build and to succeed and to leave a legacy that we aspire to live up to. And they left tremendous shoes that we have to fill. And we all know, we see, first of all, from, in our community, we see what Shelley has done for our shul, for our community, and her thirst for knowledge, and her dedication, devotion to family, and most importantly to our shul, as the first woman president of our shul, breaking glass ceilings, as she's been doing her whole life. But I'm sure she gets that inspiration from her father. And today, on this day, 15 years later, I'm sure it doesn't get easier. I'm sure it doesn't get any less painful, but at the same time, we also recognize what our mission in life has to be. And we have to take from their greatness, we have to learn from their emunah, from their bitachon, and we have to see our way forward and make sure we transmit that to the next generation to make sure that that legacy lives forever. That's Moshe and Aaron. That's the greatness, that even the greatest people, they need others to rely on. And we have to figure out and work out for ourselves what it is that we need to get by, and who it is that on whom we need to rely, which is a very, very important factor in my opinion. So again, may the neshama of Arie Leib ben Mordechai Dov have an aliyah, Arie Halpern, today on his 15th yahrzeit, and we should only figure out together how we can live up to the legacy of these giants upon whose shoulders we stand. Have a wonderful day.